Hi everyone, my name's Paul Atkins and I work for Loughborough University in the design and print department. What we're responsible for is things like the prospectus, annual reports, signage, anything that the university wants that has design element to it. We're here to kind of support that. So I was asked to kind of come along and give you some ideas of what we look for and what we think are good design and pointers and how to kind of think about your ideas as well. So basically 80%, remember 80% of what you see, but only 20% of what you read. So kind of the difference by showing something like this will help kind of get your point across quite easily. So we've kind of created that for this slide. Another thing to think about as well, kind of as a background to all this, is years ago we had like the old school cookbooks, and that was limited basically because of lithographic technique at the time. So it was very formulaic and quite boring, very difficult to follow, more of a science than something that people enjoy. Whereas with newer cookbooks, what we're seeing now is a lot more graphical information, a lot more detail, and a lot less text. So, as you can see there, the page is absolutely full with instructions. With the use of a modern cookbook, it's a lot more simplified to get the same point across in an easier way. With anything like, if you're doing a poster, an infographic or whatever, what is also important is the title. And I think when you are doing a poster, title choice or distilling down a title is really important to get people interested in what you're trying to say. It needs to sell your work, as I've mentioned here, and it needs to be short. So, it needs to be understood, because it might be that actually someone's reading something from across a busy room, and if you get their interest from basic, interesting title, people will actually cross the room to read that information. If it just makes them switch off or whatever, they'll just carry on around the room and ignore what you're trying to say. So a really good title. So as an example, we've got a long title there, 14 steps to creating an infographic for university researchers. But shorten it down, infographic creation for researchers, it says the same thing, but it's a lot less wordy, and hopefully it would kind of get people a little bit more interested in what you're trying to say and actually approach. And I want to know more about, this creation, infographic creation for researchers. Also, content. First, with anything, I think you need to get the right content. So I think you need to, again, distill your information down to the interesting bits, the good bits, the bits that people will understand if they're coming to your research but kind of don't have a clue about astrophysics or whatever you're trying to say. So, think about the stuff that will communicate to your audience, whether they are, obviously you can write something which is for astrophysicists, or you can write something which is for people like me, like a designer, and how would I understand what you're trying to communicate. So, you need to target your audience with punching, interesting facts. Let images and data tell a story. Don't just feel that you have to shovel a load of text and a load of data. Look, a bit like the cookbook earlier, don't shovel it all in. Where you can put a picture in which will explain it a lot more easier than a paragraph of text, you're going to be, part of the way there to actually engaging the person with what we're trying to show in terms of a layout and the information. Take the reader on a journey, and above all, plan it out. It's really important that you do plan it out before you start to put everything on the page or in your infographic, because you'll find that it will just grow and grow and grow, and you'll end up with something that's as long as a piece of wallpaper rather than something that will fit on an A2 sheet. Think about how much data do you have, what elements do you want to use, who are you trying to reach? So again, as I mentioned earlier, is it a fellow astrophysicist, or is it a designer, or a housewife, or a student? So, consider that. What's the point of the infographic or the poster? Who are you trying to engage? What is the outcome that you want? Do you want actually someone to contact you at the end of that? So if you're expecting people to kind of want to know more, put your contact details on, but don't literally put absolutely everything on that you need. Just enough to get people to contact you if they want to know more information. And brainstorming can help. So don't necessarily think you've got to go straight to the computer and start laying something out. Get down a piece of paper and start scribbling ideas and scribbling layouts, which I'll go on to in a minute. Simple information helps understanding. So, as I said, show it rather than write it. Things like what I pick up on in my everyday job, but also if someone's seeing any information that you're showing, the other thing is it kind of like a job interview as well? Will someone read your information and actually think, wow, we could really do with this person on our team? So things like attention to detail and consistency. So when you're writing and, are you writing it as AND, or are you putting an ampersand in? So all that, the little attention to detail help and kind of show that you're actually into the detail of what you're doing. Limit your fonts as well. There's nothing worse than actually seeing something where someone's used every font on their PC. They just think, well, I've got 16 fonts, I've got to use them all, and I'll use them all over the place. Limit your font use. 2, maybe 3 fonts for anything that you're doing should be plenty. And often, a font will have several weights in it, so it might be a bold or a condensed or an italic. So that's fine, but limit the style of fonts to probably 2 or 3 fonts. Should do and a good font will do everything that you need it to do. And colour as well. A lot of people love colour and will again just throw a whole palette in there. So I think where you want to use colour, less is more. So again, choose a colour palette of 2 or 3 colours, because that again helps simplify the information down and actually can help guide the user through a poster by the clever use of colour. Just move on. Don't neglect white space as well. When you're doing white space, blue space, whatever colour your background is, if you're doing poster, infographic, it is important to keep plenty of space between paragraphs, or don't feel that you have to fill every tiny bit of space, because you might plan something out and you think, oh, I'll just put a bit more detail in, or I'll just put another graph in. If it's not needed, make something a little bit bigger, leave the space. You don't need to fill every centimetre with information. Space does help. Ensure it's visually appealing as well. So where you can, stick to one style for images or graphics. So it's very tempting to go on to things like Google and just think, that's a fabulous example, that's a fabulous example. And then you end up kind of undoing what you've done with all the type of like the font choice and the colour choice, and then you put a load of graphics in that are all different colours, all different styles, and you actually start to kind of undo what you tried to do elsewhere. If you've got the time and a way of doing it, recreate graphics, because there's nothing more than actually getting a nice consistent look to graphics, and I'll show you some examples later on. great stats and data are vital as well. So where you've got a load of research data, pick out, and emphasise the juicy detail, the ones that absolutely sound like 97% of this was, so it's all those facts that actually kind of sell the information. So don't necessarily say, oh well, only 23% of this happened. If there's another fact, pick on the really, really good facts that you want to put into your data, into your information, because that will help sell what you're trying to say. And it's a sales thing, it's a marketing, by creating something, by doing something, you're actually kind of marketing yourself and your ideas. Connect the information and give a flow as well. So what I mean by that is where you want someone to actually physically go through the poster in a certain way, and there's little tips and tricks like obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, or do you intend someone to kind of go column, down each column? So consider, the hierarchy of information. Often I say things like, think of, if you're doing a poster, a little bit like an eye chart. Largest information at the top, and gradually the information gets smaller, so you kind of hook people into the information. That, again, it's that distance thing. If someone likes the heading, we'll get a bit closer, look at the introduction, read the introduction, get a bit closer and get into the details. So you actually kind of start to pull people in because they can't read things from a distance. So consider your content, which I said, is it good or bad? So this is an example of what I'm trying to say is in terms of graphic creation or the way you represent your data, make sure it's consistent, whether it's in colour, style, font use, or what you're trying to say. And this can be backed up with some, 87% or whatever, but it's just that kind of visual consistency. If these are all seen in the same poster, it just feels like it's part of the same data, the same information that you're trying to get across. Here's some examples which, again, things like Pinterest, Behance, Google search will give you loads of styles and information. So don't feel that every time that you need to kind of reinvent the wheel. If someone's already done the work for you, kind of, it's there. Do you think that that's a good idea to represent your data? So look around, see what other people are doing, and kind of just take a lead from visually from styles that kind of work for you or work for your information and your data. So that's just a little bit of an example. What you can do as well, these are just some little rough ones that I did. Kind of by doing little scamps and little kind of layouts, you can get an idea of how many pictures do I want, what's going to work best. So things like on the poster title, having it in a band, and you can do these quite quickly just on the back of a beer mat kind of thing, where you're just scribbling ideas down, and it's quick. You don't have to go to the computer, but it just gives you an idea of roughly what will work, what won't work, with however many graphs you want to put in there, or however many bullet points that you want. This is an example. Sorry, we've gone a little bit. We recently, in the department, got given this, and someone came along and said, "Can you just print this for us? We've actually spent all the time. We've done this. It's not as clear as it should be. Sorry, but we've done this brilliant poster. Can you print it?" And this is actually for our new campus in London that will be opening on Olympic Park in September. And we already have a brand, we already have a style, but someone decided that they wanted to kind of do a DIY job on it. So what we did is said, well, actually we'll do this for you. So what we did is actually took it from that to that, brought it into the branding style, but we still weren't quite happy with it, and it was what I was saying about recreate the infographics or the information in it. So actually what we did is took it a step further and ended up simplifying it down. And once you've got an element like in here, you can duplicate it to there. So there's lots of little things that you can do to make several infographics quite easy to create, because if you've created it once, you can use it on something else as well. So, you know, going from that to that, I know which one I prefer to read and to look at, so, or I would say that, I suppose. So I thought that was a good example, going from point A to point C, really, in kind of a couple of stages. This is another one which I thought was really fun, and it's again just representing your data in a different way. Is it about food? If it is, how do I cut a carrot or something to show percentages of the information that you want? And again, that was just off Pinterest. I found that was quite a nice infographic to share with you. And then this, just to kind of finish off, is some examples of taking data and just kind of distilling it down and just making it easy to communicate in little chunks that we use in our brochures, and I'm sure the University of Nottingham do the same, to kind of get the key facts across. So again, you can create these little things that you could pull into reports, into posters, into infographics, and see them as individual elements, but you can actually bolt them together and actually create like a data and information sheet if you wanted to. At the end of the day, I think what's really useful is to test it. You know, what you're doing, ask friends, ask family, you know, they're guinea pigs, they're there, they really want to kind of see what you're doing. And, you know, it's, do they understand it? You know, if that's the audience, it's not for academics or people within your own kind of education circle. It's like, test it on people, make sure that they understand what you're trying to say. If not, take that criticism on board and go back and simplify it even more, use less bullet points if you need to. And as I've said, there's some great examples online of good design, good infographic. So refer to places like Pinterest, Behance, Google. I think you can always find plenty of tips and tricks online. And remember that good design does take time. You know, you're not going to rattle things out really, really quickly. If you want to do it well, build time in and build time to go that a little bit further and create the information, create the graphics and the charts, so you've got that visual consistency running through everything. That's all from me. Has anyone got any questions at all? Hi.
Thank you, that was really good and enjoyed it. You have a slide up with different images on. You said we can get them on Google or look at Pinterest. How do you actually put the data in that to make it look like?
Oh right, I kind of really, so you're on about that one, aren't you?
Yeah. Or the one before as well.
Yeah. What sometimes you can do is if you kind of Google things or say specifically Pinterest will often link to websites. So this is actually, you can actually buy this as a kind of like a template. So I don't know when you buy it if then you can just put data in and numbers or.
I was talking about that in the last session. Actually making infographics using online web tools.
Okay, cool.
So there are online kind of things that you can either try for free or subscribe to, and you can do that. But these specifically are more from a designer point of view for me. So what we would do is you could create these yourself from scratch, which is what we would do in the studio, or you can actually kind of buy these templates. But then what you would have to do is have something like, say, Adobe Illustrator to then kind of move that round physically, because this will be a drawing rather than magically you type 28% in or whatever and it moves.
Yeah, that's exactly what the web's about.
Yeah, so
that I'll introduce will do. Yeah.
Okay.